Let's go back in time to 1932 as Converse brings you historic footage of the legendary original Celtics, with whom all great professional teams are compared.
We have now taken over your radio.
Richie Guerin is about to show you the most important step in getting past a man. It's the first one.
And Oscar will inbound it. The men in green, the Milwaukee Bucks, that's Alcindor against Bellamy.
Has Jordan, Allen shakes free, gets two!
Gilmore
Stop! Brother!
lead Toledo artists, you get 21.
4:28 to go in the first quarter for the Cal Palace. Here's Barry.
Jordan, open! Chicago with the lead!
Hello, and welcome back to the Over and Back Classic NBA podcast at thepodiumgame.com. I am Jason Mann, and with me, as always, is Rich Craich. Rich, great to be back with you.
Yes, absolutely good. I'm very ready for this episode. It should be a fun one. I think it's an odd topic, and it's one of our. We don't usually get into like super subjective topics, but this one's got hints of that. But I'm pretty interested to see how people feel, and this is an episode in particular that I would love to hear from people who listen on what you would count, or who you would say it would count in our criteria here, or seasons you remember, players you remember, anything like that, because it's a very subjective one, but it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Yeah,
and we're talking about players who had unexpectedly great playoff series, whether they were just like completely out of nowhere, whether they were role players playing like all-stars, whether they were all-stars playing like superstars, just guys who just leaped off the page and were just like incredible. So
yeah. And we didn't look at on the opposite side. I did not look at like guys who were really good who had bad playoff. Like that doesn't interest me all that well. It doesn't, not that big of a deal. Oh, this guy choked in the playoffs. Like, I'm more interested in, like you said, the guy who came out of nowhere and scored 20 points in every game in the playoffs or whatever. One of the themes you're going to see with a lot of these, and I absolutely understand, is that they're like 3-game series or 4-game series or whatever. And we see these guys who they have a run, but I think that's still pretty significant, especially when you look at what the regular season numbers are compared to what their playoff numbers are. Yeah, 3 or 4 games of averaging 20 points, whatever. But when these guys, when they're nothings all year and then they average 4 straight 20, I mean, that's significant. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we'll start here in 1966, 1967. Archie Clark, a Los Angeles Laker. A little bit of research here, a little bit. What I'll do is kind of break down the regular season numbers, and then after that we'll do the playoff numbers. But regular season, 10.5 points per game, 2.9 rebounds per game, 23 minutes, 0.075 win shares per 48, and then a 12.3 PER. This is a little bit of an interesting one because he before February he had only averaged 7.9 points per game, but after February it was 15.2. Points per game. So he was a rookie. So this is a little bit of a different one where, you have a rookie in here and, he probably just needed to get trusted a little bit more, needed a little bit more playing time. But you see a pretty big transformation come playoff time. I mean, he was really, really good come playoff time. 25.7 points per game. So compare that to, 10.5, 4.3 rebounds per game, 41 minutes. So we went all the way to 41 minutes from 23 the rest of the year. 0.172 win shares per 48, which is pretty solid, and then 18.8 PER. So it tells you that. Game log here real quick. The Lakers faced the San Francisco Warriors in the first round. They unfortunately lost in 3 games, but he had 26, 24, and 27 points, so not bad at all. And Archie Clark ended up actually being a pretty good player. He was a 2-time NBA All-Star and was one of the first effective, and this is according to a few articles I read, one of the first effective practitioners of the crossover dribble, which inspired his nickname Shake and Bake. So Shake and Bake, Archie Clark.
Yeah, he also was he was involved in the trade that for Will Chamberlain to the Lakers.
Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, okay. All right. I did not know that, actually.
Yeah.
There you go.
He apparently...
What are your favorite Archie Clark memories?
He apparently co-founded the National Basketball Retired Players Association with Oscar Robertson and the 3 Daves of DeBusschere, Bing, and Cowens.
There we go. Yeah. So Archie Clark, see?
Yeah.
The little things. You do a little bit of research here, and then you end up getting a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. That's an interesting one, and
he's a little bit. I mean, this is the one where I kind of qualified as a rookie. I try to kind of stay away from rookies,
right?
Because that's like a hey, in the first 3 months, your coach probably hates you and doesn't trust you and you don't know any of the plays and you're terrible or whatever. But then you get going and going and going. Like this year, you're going to get something like, for the Bulls, Nikola Mirotic, as of late has just been awesome because now he's finally getting trusted. He's getting plays ran for him and stuff. So I always get kind of weary of that. But he really took a huge leap there from, like I said, 10.5 to 25. That's significant enough where I thought it needed to be included. But
I think that's a good choice. Absolutely.
All right, so I'll move on here to 1977, Bob Gross from the Portland Trailblazers. And the Trailblazers will be a theme here coming up pretty soon. Regular season, 11.4 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 27.2 minutes per game, 0.159 win shares per 48, and then a 16.2 PER. He had a pretty decent play. I mean, I'm not going to say he made a huge leap, but I'm going to kind of qualify where I really thought he stood out. Playoffs in general, 14.1 points per game, a 0.203 win shares per 48, 18.7 PER. So improved a little bit there, but he was particularly awesome in the playoffs, and this was against the Philadelphia 76ers. 16 points, 10. Here's his game logs: 16 points, 10 points, 19 points, 10 points. And then in the final 2 games of the season, 25 and 24 points. And, of course, if you don't know that team, the 76-77 Portland Trailblazers are obviously the championship teams, the Bill Walton title teams. So to have, game 6 and 7, 25 and 24 points and, en route to the NBA title, fairly significant. So that's kind of why I included him on this list, even if overall playoffs he wasn't, that much better than usual. But those the NBA Finals, he really, really stood out.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob Gross was he played his entire career with the Clippers, with the Blazers, except for his final season in '83 with the Clippers, where he was reunited with Bill Walton.
There you go. Oh God, that Bill. And I believe he has a number retired too with Portland.
He did, yes.
Is that correct?
And he went into the construction business after basketball played.
I saw that on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing about like athlete Wikipedia is because it's like it's not obviously the modern athletes that do that, but it's all those like all the 70s and 80s guys. Like then he ran like a home remodeling business for like 20 years and like still does. And like I always look it up too, and it's always I'm always like there he is. Like, or they're like real estate guys, and it's like okay, like that's him because but nowadays I don't think. I don't know if these guys are going to, I don't know if Kevin Durant has like a budgeting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine some of them will like own businesses and will like.
Oh, sure. They get into investing and all that stuff. Yeah. But like the day to day, like I want to sit at a desk and like work at like an insurance company.
Seems less
like those days are long.
Well,
like, I mean, Kevin Durant might own an insurance company, but he's probably not going to work the front desk at one.
Like John Havlicek worked in insurance while he was a player.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Like in the off season, it's like, oh, good, I can finally make some money this off season.
Exactly. Like that's insane. But yeah, it's amazing the just completely different lives those guys lived.
Breaking news here.
Well, right.
Players today make more than they do, but it's still pretty fun. It's fun to look at. Yeah.
The extreme amount of it, I guess, in the lifestyle. I mean, yes, obviously that they make a lot more money now, but you still think of athletes were still making good livings for the most part in that time. I mean, I guess basketball was still behind baseball and football and what the guys were making probably up until the 80s. But anyway.
All right, so now the star of this episode, Billy Ray Bates. Yes. We're going to start with, here's our guy, 79-80. This is the first year with Portland Trailblazers. A little bit of background on Bates. The Houston Rockets selected him in the 3rd round of the 1978 draft, and that's one of my favorite things about the old NBA, and I wish they still did, is where they had obnoxiously long amount of rounds. Only the first 2 rounds ever netted any decent players, but still, I like the idea of a little diamond in the rough, especially with the D League. Come on, we can do more than 2 rounds, right?
I mean.
And then you get weird picks, like Carl Lewis.
I do think the weird picks are fun. I would never watch it because it would be incredible.
No, it'd be horrendous. It would be like, who's this guy from Northeastern University?
But yes, but it is pretty amazing that they used to go 7 rounds deep or whatever.
Yeah. I just want celebrity. I want more celebrities being drafted.
There you go.
That's all I want.
Okay, that's fair. I mean,
and athletes from other sports that they hope, hey, you going to play NBA? No, not really. Oh, okay.
Maybe somebody would draft Bjork.
And this is the opportunity for Bjork. Yeah, still.
Yeah.
How tall? She's kind of short, though, right?
Probably, but maybe she got a good crossover. Who knows?
That's true. We don't know about her. She learned from Archie Shake and Bake Clark.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Got a full circular. So
Peter Guðmundsson, most likely. Yeah, being Iceland's greatest player.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Of course. Yes. Which I could not find. I'll look later, but. We'll see. Billy Ray had a very interesting career. Before the season started, the first year where he was drafted by the Rockets, he was cut after his agent demanded guaranteed money for the 3rd rounder, and they told him, "Oh, okay, well, here's a door. You can walk through there." third round guy. He ended up then playing for the Maine Lumberjacks, the now defunct Continental Basketball Association, and then he won the league's Rookie of the Year and the Slam Dunk competition, and he was a big fan favorite for his ferocious dunks. This led to a 10-day contract with the Portland Trailblazers in 1980, and then the High Flyer took the city by storm. It had almost kind of a Linsanity type deal where became a crowd favorite for his dunks. He had a very energetic playing style. And then, he didn't really come out of nowhere. I mean, he in a way he did, because it took a lot of time for him to really get going. But he won NBA Player of the Week towards the end of his rookie season. And then the playoffs are a whole different story. Real quick, regular season, this is only in 16 games, mind you, but 11.3 points per game, 0.188 win shares per 48, and then a 24.1 PER. So while he might have not have had like the raw counting stats, like it showed that he was pretty good in those limited times. Like he just needed more time to really show and get out there and do something. In the playoffs, he absolutely did. He the minutes per game jumped all the way up to 34.7. He averaged 25 points per game, 3.3 rebounds per game. Quick little game logs here. This is against Seattle, the Seattle Supersonics. He had 29 points, 20 points, and then 26 points in the final game. Obviously, Portland lost. But that's not the last we hear of Mr. Billy Ray Bates, because then the exact next year, he regular season, 13.8 points per game, 20.3 minutes per game. So apparently he started sucking again, and they said, "Oh, you're terrible." And then come playoff time, "Oh wait, we'll start playing you again," because he got really good again. 28.3 points per game, so that's a 13 to 28 jump. That's pretty great. 38.3 minutes per game, PR 24.3, and then a 0.194 win shares per 48. His game logs, and this is against the Kansas City Kings, 25 points, 26 points, and 34 points. So interestingly enough, a few tidbits on him, and I'm glad he came up. His average of 26.7 points per game in the playoffs stands as the highest in NBA history by a non-starter. So he didn't start any of these games where he was putting down like 30. So that's Billy Ray Bates, everybody. Yeah. Unfortunately, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say he's talked about in the David Halberstam book on the Blazers. He's kind of the I mean, most of the book is frankly depressing for the Trailblazers because of it basically documents Bill Walton, his foot issues and not wanting to be on the team anymore, and the malaise that kind of set in after that. And then Billy Ray Bates was kind of like the ray of hope in a sense, where like, they have this guy out of nowhere and he's exciting for them, but obviously it was it didn't really last. It didn't go well.
No, unfortunately not. No, so drug issues plagued him, obviously the time period, and this is a common story with a lot of the late 70s, 80s players that, drug issues plagued him, and he ended up going to the Philippine Basketball Association. So he's, and almost, really in a lot of ways became like what we consider the modern, like Steph Marbury, where, you get statues built for you and there's like documentaries made about him or whatever. Billy Ray Bates was a legend in the Philippine basketball. In his 4 seasons in the league, he averaged 46.2 points per game.
It's not bad.
That's not bad at all. Yeah. A great little tidbit here. One player, Joel Banal, said his favorite game ever was holding Bates to a career low. This is his career low in the Philippine Basketball Association, 28 points. So that was considered we shut down Billy Ray Bates because he only scored 28 points. So
there are some Billy Ray Bates highlight packages on YouTube, including some Philippines highlights. So those would be interesting to see. I watched some of the Blazers ones. I didn't actually get a chance to watch any of the Philippines ones. So we'll have to on our future, of course, Philippine Basketball Association show that we'll be doing that.
It sounds great. It sounds awesome.
That'll be on there. So
a few fun things too. Real quick, his points per game in the different leagues, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce the names of the teams that he played for. 1983, he averaged 41.7 points per game. 1986, 49.6. 1987 had a pretty good year. He averaged 54.9 points per game and 15 rebounds. And then 1988, 31 points per game. So, he enjoyed playing the Philippines. And apparently there's some other stories, too, that he, similar to Wilt Chamberlain, he scored a lot on the court and also a lot off the court as well, apparently, according to teammates. And there was some book that they said that he was quite enjoyed his time in the Philippines. So, yeah, unfortunately, things did not go too well for old Billy. January in 1998, he robbed a New Jersey Texaco at knife point, slashing the ear of the attendant, and he went to jail because that is not allowed. Robbing and then slicing a guy's ear is frowned upon in America.
Most places, I would imagine.
Yes, so he unfortunately not too great post career, but kind of fun. That was really interesting how back-to-back years. It's just funny too how like after that one playoff series, you would think that next year he'd be like a star, and he wasn't. It was kind of the same thing, and he needed to kind of prove himself again.
I mean, he played pretty well during that regular season, but I mean, it was more like a role player. I mean, it wasn't
exactly.
I mean,
right.
he was playing 20 minutes a game. I mean, he had good numbers, but definitely was not. Yeah, it was more like he was just a good bench player, a good six man.
And then come playoff time, he's just the guy.
Right,
I mean, he's
exactly.
like the featured scorer off the bench too, which is just crazy. Which is really fun. Move on to 1982-80. Johnny Moore, San Antonio Spurs. Regular season 12.2 points per game, 9.8 assists per game. That was always Johnny Moore's game. The assist, 0.123 win shares per 48, and then a 17.5 PER. Come playoff time, you bump those up to 22.5 points per game, 14.6 assists per game. That was awesome. 2.5 steals. I wanted to add that. Also a really awesome 52.9 3-point percentage, which 82-83. That's good. You don't get too many of those percentages. I mean, he obviously led the league at that time. 0.256 win shares per 48, and then a 25.6 PER. Just insane assist numbers as well. He had a 20 assists game against Denver, and then against the Los Angeles Lakers in the semifinals, he had an 18 assist game and then 2 17 assist games. So just crazy assist numbers for Johnny Moore right here. And it was kind of funny. I did a quick little play index, and only Magic Johnson in 1986 and 85 had more assists per playoff season, like in terms of the full playoffs, than Johnny Moore did in that year. So those are the only two guys, or the only person is Magic Johnson to have anywhere near the same amount of assists per game during the playoffs than Johnny Moore. So, and then right below him were John Stockton. So that's pretty good company to keep as far as point guards. So
absolutely. Yeah, he actually had like a really severe bout of meningitis, and that basically ruined his career. He had it like in 86 and then played like 5 games in 87 and then was out for a while. I guess he played in Mexico, and then he came back to the Spurs for part of the 89-90 season, but just completely took him out. He played 1 game with the Nets and the rest of his career with the Spurs, which is kind of interesting. But he's another guy who probably like just one of those like early 80s point guards who's a little bit forgotten because I guess pretty much Magic and to a degree, Isaiah Thomas pretty much overshadowed everybody else.
Absolutely, yeah. And moving on here, 1998-99, Marcus Camby. This is New York Knicks Marcus Camby. Regular season, 7.2 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game. Those are probably the only big significant ones for Camby. Come playoff time, those stepped up pretty big. 10.4 points per game, 7.7 rebounds per game, 24.8 PER. Especially in the Eastern Finals, he was quite dominant. And this is, of course, the New York Knicks that made it to the NBA Finals before losing to San Antonio. But he was dominant in the Eastern Finals against Indiana, 14.3 points per game and then 10.7 rebounds per game. Unfortunately, he struggled in the NBA Finals when they finally got there, 9.6 points per game and 7.8 rebounds per game. But I imagine, big man Marcus Camby probably has some issues, prime David Robinson and becoming superstar Tim Duncan. So that might have been a tough little matchup for young Marcus, but.
Yeah, I mean, people thought Camby was going to really end up being like a superstar type player, I think.
Yeah, and mind you, this is, he had already been at Toronto and then was traded, obviously went on to the New York Knicks. So he's already on his second team. This was like his
fourth year, maybe? It was
third or fourth, somewhere there, one of those two.
And he had during the playoffs, he had a, 0.280, win shares per 48, which is really good. Yeah. So, I mean, he really did perform well, I guess up until those finals, but he obviously had another guy with a good career, but it never really quite met the expectations that kind of people.
No. Yeah, and became a serviceable role player and that sort of stuff. I mean, and had some pretty good years, but he was was really the dominant big man. He was never. No, he never really was able to gain the weight in a lot of ways. He never seemed like he was that, but became a really good defender and really good. I obviously had a real good career, but as you said, like the idea that you were going to throw it down to him and he was going to score 20 points per game or whatever never really kind of clicked and never really happened. Yeah. But found his niche and was able to keep it around for a while.
Nothing to be ashamed of, obviously, but. No. But is it the kind of the one time where I don't even know if he quite fulfilled that promise in that playoffs or for most of that playoffs, but it was kind of like a time where you could think like, oh, okay, this is what he's going to be,
right? And then, the next year he comes back and he's back to kind of what he was the year prior, in the regular season. I was like, oh man, all right. Yeah. And then, he'd be eventually, moved for, I believe, Antonio McDyess, right? To the Nuggets.
Yes, I believe that's right.
Yeah, and that's when I think he really started to kind of click a lot of ways. I mean, he was okay on the Knicks, but I think on that little Nuggets run of Camby was when he really kind of finally started getting it together. And then, obviously moved on to Houston and a few other Clippers, for a while.
He bounced around a lot. But yeah, I mean, he was, I know he had a real good reputation as a defender. I don't know if that actually necessarily matched what, I think he may have been a guy who's a little bit overrated by blocks, but still, yeah, he was good. Marcus Camby.
All right. Speaking of the New York Knicks,
big snacks.
2004, 2007, Jerome James. Yes, you probably know this one. He was supersonic at this time, regular season. Jerome James, 4.9 points per game, 10 PR, which is not good, in case you're curious. Come playoff time, though, Jerome James is a man. 12.5 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, 19.3 PR. So, not great, but you could kind of make an assumption.
In 27 minutes per game.
Right. So, I mean, he popped it up a little bit. So that was, and totally destroyed the Kings in the first round. Not as good in round 2 versus the Spurs, but did have a 7-for-7, 15-point game. And that series, the Seattle Supersonics took the Spurs to 6 games. Fun little mid-2000s Seattle Supersonics, a long-forgotten team in the annals of time. Yeah.
They had one really good year with Nate McMillan, and then it kind of fell off. But their defense got really, really bad. But
yes. And as you probably know, if you follow the NBA, Jerome James then got paid a lot by Mr. Isaiah Thomas. He got a 5-year, $30 million free agent contract with the New York Knicks. That went swimmingly. He arrived at his first spring training. I'm watching
spring training
in the background, so that's why I said spring training. He arrived at his first training camp, out of shape, and in his first season averaged only 3.1 points per game and 2.1 rebounds per game in 9 minutes. So terrible. And then ended up going to the Bulls and being totally fat as hell. And he's got the greatest. Have you ever seen the Jerome James as a Chicago Bull media day photo?
I don't know if I have.
I'm going to send it to you in the Skype right now.
Okay.
It's it's like the most horribly out of shape.
You have to put in the show notes or something if
it's
possible.
just like, dude, come on, you can't even. Yes. All right, there.
I will say one. He had the great nickname of Big Snacks, of course, which is which is one of the better nicknames.
That's not even
wow.
That's not there's some guys who are big, like Shaq. Everyone's like, oh yeah, he's fat, or Charles Barkley. This guy is just
very
completely
wide. Very wide.
It's not even there's no muscle mass. There's not even an ounce of muscle mass. That's just straight up. Yeah. I am fat as hell.
It's funny because 5 years, $30 million. It's you look at it now and it's well, it's not actually that terrible. But I mean, for a guy who does nothing, and and the cap being $55 million at the time, or whatever,
right.
It was
being hamstrung by Jerome James.
That was maybe. I mean, it might have been the 5th worst move that Isaiah Thomas made, but it wasn't necessarily. It definitely wasn't the worst. So
because what's funny is there's always that lineage of the Knicks. Just there was one year where, and I didn't really look them up, but they got Othello Harrington, and then who was the other guy? They got some other guy, and it was they gave decent contracts. These guys, what are you doing? Who are you, why are you getting these guys? Who was Othello Harrington, and who was the other one?
They had Malik Rose, but I think they traded for him.
It wasn't Malik Rose. I'm gonna look it up right now. I got to find out who it was. But yeah, they had one good playoff series, and old Isaiah just had to have them. Or I don't know if Isaiah was their guy at that point. But,
he came on in 2004, I think. So.
Okay, so this is pre-Isaiah. So
okay.
Who the hell am I thinking of? I'm going to find out. As long as it's going to take.
Well, it's not our next guy, is it?
No, it is not Timmy Thomas. No. That would be later. Yeah, yes, but not.
Okay.
Not Larry Robinson. I don't know.
All right.
No, I'm going to move on. I can't.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
I don't know who Larry Robinson is. So
I don't know Eddie. I know Eddie Robinson, but I don't know Larry Robinson.
Yeah, it wasn't Clarence Weatherspoon either, but
okay,
it could have been.
Okay.
But anyway, Jerome James fat and bad, and it didn't work out too well.
No.
But one good playoff series.
Yeah.
2005, 2006.
He was
Tim
really
Thomas.
good in that playoff series.
He was. No, I mean, he was. That was a guy who I think.
Yes.
Somebody told him, "Hey, by the way, you're a free agent." So and he was like, "Oh shit!" Because that was a mode that. When you talk about it, and that's one that I'm glad we kind of talked about, because when you think of, at least when I think of this, I think of a Jerome James, a guy who just got paid simply by having a really, really good playoff run.
Yeah.
So
my guess is the Kings did not have a good defense that year.
No, oh god,
yeah. And it didn't have a good big man defense anyway.
Well, I'm sure Isaiah was pouring over his synergy and his offensive rating, his per 100 possessions.
Sure.
Numbers, so and not just going blindly by hit points per game and rebounds per game, but
well, they did that. They had Brad Miller, and they had Kenny Thomas, Brian Skinner, Greg Ostertag, and Darius Sangalia. So
what a powerhouse!
Yes, that was the year of the Chris Webber trade. So
yeah. God. All right. As I mentioned, 2006, Tim Thomas is the Phoenix Sun Tim Thomas. And in case you've probably seen videos of it. It's great. I mean, that's a guy just on a different world, Tim Thomas, who was loving it too. Like, you remember that, he was hitting threes and pounding his headband and just loving it, just having a great time. Regular season, only in 26 games, 24 minutes per game, 11 points per game. Come playoff time, they'll increase that a bunch. 28 minutes per game, 15.1 points per game, and surprisingly enough, 6.3 rebounds per game for old Tim Thomas. Famously hit a game winner against the Los Angeles Lakers. It just had just a ridiculous. And I'm sure there's a highlight video out there, but yeah, I mean, this is a guy who was just unconscious. Like, any three he put up was going in, and like, he was just having the time of his life with that team, and that was an exciting team, and it was just fun to see what he was able to do. And this is kind of funny as well, because that team was pretty solid and was thought of as being, a really good team, but they almost lost to the Lakers in the first round, and it was Tim Thomas, hitting that game winner and then having a really good. Actually, I believe in the overtime as well.
It was a game tying 3-pointer. It was game 6. Like, Phoenix had been down 3-1 in that series, and they came back.
And Phoenix is favored in the series.
They were a 2nd seed. The Lakers were the 7th seed, and not particularly good. And the Suns, then he had another one in overtime. They won a game 7, and they destroyed them in game 7 to complete the comeback. So, he played really well against the Clippers as well in that series.
Mm-hmm. And he got paid pretty good.
He did. Yeah.
Who gave him? Oh, was it the Knicks?
It was the Clippers. It was the.
Okay, that was it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking it was the Knicks who paid him. No, but it was the Clippers. So, another great organization. It's funny because I love these. He actually played about as well during the 2001 playoffs from Milwaukee, but that was in line with his season. Like, Tim Thomas actually was pretty good for a while, and like, it just sort of saying, I remember people talking. I remember reading an article about busts or whatever, and guys who and remember reading like that. He was like one guy who, like, people were just like in awe of like his natural talent, and he was just a guy who never was just never able to capitalize it beyond a few moments here and there with the work ethic or whatever it was, but
Now I remember this timeline here, because I remember why I was so much remember Tim Thomas during this playoff series, because he was on the Bulls prior to that, because he was trading the big Eddie Curry trade or whatever, and then they just waived him because they didn't want him and they thought he sucked or whatever, and that he was a trouble and all that sort of stuff. And then I remember all my Bulls fan friends that were watching were like, "Oh, I told you Tim Thomas is good," and I was like, "He's not good. Like, he's just chucking threes and they just happen to be going in or whatever." And then of course I proved right in the end, but and they ended up going to the Bulls again in a trade with Jerome James.
Yeah,
so there you go. Right. And it was bought out yet again by the Bulls. So, like, stop taking him a trade.
Ray Allen was quoted as saying, if he wanted to, Tim Thomas could be the best player in the league. And apparently Tim Tim Thomas called Kenyon Martin Fugazi. So, which is good. That's nice.
I love Tim Thomas. Yeah. He was a guy, and he was that way too. Even as like a kid, not a kid, but like, you just knew this guy, whatever he wanted to. And I think he knew it too. He was like, I could be good,
but it's just easier not to be good.
I'd rather just kind of slow.
I'd rather make, good money and not really work hard.
Like, we talk about an all-time bust. How much money did Tim Thomas make in his career? I'm going to look this up right now, so you can feel bad about your life knowing how hard you work.
Yeah. And in fairness, like, I'm sure, like, by like NBA standards, Tim Thomas probably didn't work very hard, but like by regular person standards,
well, that's
like insanely hard, So.
Right, and I say that with people all the time as well, because they're like, "Oh, that guy's late." I'm like, "Yeah, he's probably." I mean, like, yeah, he's not like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan level of dedication, but yeah, he's probably not.
Yeah.
Let me see what he made. Oh my lord, he made $97 million in his life.
Not bad.
So, almost 97,800. So,
hey,
good lord,
good for him.
God, like almost a billionaire. Like, that's unbelievable. Oh god, that's great. I'm glad. Yeah, you know what? Hey. I don't even know what to do with my life. Now that I found out
you got the powerful reaction out of this.
That's a lot of money. Okay, well, hey, good for you, Tim Thomas. I always liked you. So
yeah.
All right, final two ones on here that I have. 2007, Antawn Jamison, Washington Wizards. Antawn Jamison, which I forgot the Antawn Jamison Washington Wizards era, but he was on there for a while.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, Antawn was like a really good player for a while. Like he was absolutely like a very good like third best guy on your team. Like he was that for probably a decade. I mean, if you were trying to throw like a top 50 players of the 2000s together, like he'd be on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Top 30.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. And it's kind of funny here. We see this particular season kind of led to a future thing in his career that could have been, significant had everything worked out. But regular season this year, 2007, 19.8 points per game. So obviously no slouch, 18.4 PER. But come playoff time, became an absolute monster. 32 points per game, 9.8 rebounds per game. 26.5 PER, so just became a unbelievable player. And the game logs too, and this is against the Cleveland Cavaliers, so this is the the early LeBron Cleveland Cavaliers. Not that early. He'd already been in the league a few years, but 28 points, game 1, so 28 points and 14 rebounds. Game 2, 31 points and 10 rebounds. Game 3, 38 points and 11 rebounds. And then game 4, 31 and 4. And then, like I said, kind of takes back is when Cleveland was looking for a guy, another piece to fit with LeBron, they went calling to Jamison, and Jamison was one of the guys that they looked at. Interestingly enough, I should have copied this down. I have the quote, or I had it. I was reading it this year. I looked up because I was trying to see at SI Vault if they had anything here, and there was one thing about LeBron James actively recruiting Larry Hughes to come to the Cleveland Cavaliers and saying, "This is where you want to go, man. Like you and I together, we're just going to do this thing." I mean, so I found that pretty funny because they were talking about Larry Hughes and Jamison, obviously, and LeBron trying to recruit Larry Hughes, the free agent, to come to Cleveland. So.
No, I'm confused because this is 2006, 2007, but in that series, the Larry Hughes was already on the Cavs. So are you talking about the year before?
Oh, that was the year prior. Sorry. That's what I meant. I was looking up. Yeah, I looked up.
Okay.
I was just trying to see the context of the situation,
Gotcha.
see kind of what people thought of Jamison at the time. Yeah, because
Arenas didn't play in this series. Was he hurt? I guess.
Oh, was he?
He must have been.
It was 2006,
and Caron Butler didn't play in it either. So.
I guess somebody had to score. I guess that's why Jameson scored all.
I mean, he was efficient in that scoring too. But yeah, he definitely he did not he did not have a lot of help in that series. Because
I'm trying to look it up right now.
I think I recall this.
At the end of 2007, so towards the end of the season, towards MCL against the Bobcats.
That's right.
So.
Okay. And I guess
and Caron Butler, I don't know what he was, but yeah,
he must have been hurt too.
Oh, and this is okay. So this is famous. This led to the offseason where he opted out, and the Wizards gave him
all that money. Yeah,
ungodly amounts of money that I believe they're still paying. So,
I believe the Magic are paying it, but yes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do believe. I think it literally is like it ends this year or next year. So, yeah.
Oh boy. All right. So yeah, there's the context of that. But yeah, no, the article was basically just like that. LeBron really wanted to play with Larry Hughes, which I found kind of funny because
not
that Larry Hughes is a bad player.
No, and he was good, but they were a really terrible compliment for each other. Like, because Larry Hughes couldn't shoot,
it didn't
and
work,
LeBron couldn't shoot at that point either. So that was, I mean, in theory, Hughes was going to like be the kind of like the wing defender and sort of be the Pippen in kind of in some respect.
So I'm looking up right now. It was 2 years prior that this was, but I basically just looked up Jamison, Cleveland Cavaliers, just to get an idea of just in general what they thought of him, because obviously he would be one of the big pieces that they would in the final years of LeBron in Cleveland they would try to bring Jamison in to kind of make a playoff push or not a playoff push but like an NBA Finals push, and it just didn't quite work out. But
Jamison was traded to the Cavs in 2010. That was LeBron's last year there. And
was it last year? What was the Shaq year? Was this the same as the Shaq year? Or was that the year prior? I mixed those up. The year that they decided.
That was that was also the Shaq year. They added Antawn.
Okay, so
Jamison.
that was just all hands on deck. Yeah. Oh my God, we better figure out something.
And there have been talk of. It's always been rumored, but I think Steve Kerr has denied it. Where apparently J.J. Hickson for Amari Stoudemire was on the table, but the Cavs said no because they didn't want to get rid of J.J. Hickson. That has been like rumored. I kind of find that not to be kind of unbelievable, but they ended up making the Antawn Jamison trade instead, and Jamison just wasn't really a great fit for that team. Although
it didn't work out either.
I mean, they were they won 61 games. I mean, it's not like they were terrible, but
That would have been like, that's if you had put them two together maybe for a whole year and kind of figured out each other's roles and all that sort of. But yeah, it didn't quite. And that was a long line of like, here, LeBron, here's another guy that's like, without any idea of if they're going to compliment him, if they're going to. It was just, here's a guy that's good. Like,
yeah, I mean,
there you go.
They had a lot of old guys, and they just didn't, they just didn't really have like the right pieces, so to speak.
Yeah. Didn't quite work out. And then the last one I have here, and of course, as I mentioned at the top, if you have any that you have in mind or people that you remember or, seasons you remember, guys you remember, whatever, please let us know on Twitter, at Over and Back NBA. We'd love to kind of hear about it and talk about it and discuss it because I think it's a pretty fun topic if there's any. And it's kind of funny. Some that you think they didn't really do as well as you thought. Like you mentioned JJ Barea in 2010, 2011, who I thought as well because that guy was, all over the place for those title teams, but nothing really showed up in the box. So it was hard to quantify what he did, but I remember him having a big impact in those playoffs, but it was hard to kind of quantify there, but that's the fun of it. So last one I came up with, and this one's a little bit similar to our first one. This is a guy who I think was just sort of still a young player that finally was getting trusted a little bit more, but it's the 2013 Kawhi Leonard, San Antonio Spurs. Regular season 11.9 points per game, 16.4 PR, 1.66 win shares per 48. So not bad at all, but come playoff time, got a little bit better, 13.5 points per game, 18.9 PR, and then a .194 win shares per 48. But in particular in the NBA Finals against the Miami Heat is when he really stood out. I mean, he was a guy who, as a defender, was kind of becoming a new man and really would turn into the Kawhi Leonard that we know today. But averaged 14.6 points per game and 11.1 rebounds per game, on the biggest stage or whatever. And a lot of times was guarding LeBron or was at least guarding, in some respects, either guarding LeBron or guarding, Dwayne Wade. So always having the toughest matchup there, and really became what we know of Kawhi Leonard today, where Pop really believes in him as and you can make the justification. I mean, you could really honestly make the argument that he's I would say, this year especially, their most valuable player, or at least right up there with maybe a Tony Parker. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's either there or very close to there at this point. Yeah. I mean, just the way I think defensively in particular, he's just amazing. And
that whole identity, the defensive identity is all him. I mean, that I don't know if that ship still is going if he's not there.
Right. And he's really obviously taking a bigger role in the offense too. And he was hurt a lot of this year, so it's kind of taken up until recently, the last 20 games or so, for him to really get on track. But it's really they seem very scary now, going into the playoffs, and seem like San Antonio again. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But either way, he's a gift to them. So, and they could be really good for a long time, even after they move on from Duncan and Ginobili and eventually Parker. So, which is scary to think. I mean, they've had 18 years of 50-win seasons
so fair.
In a row. Plus, I mean, and that's not even including the 99 season where there were 50 games. But so you could, you're at close to 20 or whatever, whatever it is. It's so many, and it's incredible. And I don't know if we quite have like a equivalent to the longevity of that brilliance is pretty amazing, like almost in any sport, particularly in basketball, where it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, it's going to take, it's really honestly, because I feel like even still, I don't know if we quite appreciate it as much as we should. And it's almost going to take them all retiring and it being over and somebody writing like the definitive book or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, sure. I don't know what, maybe it's not a book. I mean, obviously, it could just be, anything. But I think it's going to take a while for us to really, and of course, it might not be over, like you said. Pop and right. Leonard might be for another 15
or,
years.
I mean,
and then another guy comes or whatever.
If they somehow get back-to-back titles, if they win this year and get back-to-back titles, I mean, that'll change, what they're thought of,
Sure. Which I always find really stupid.
Well, I mean,
they didn't win back. I know, but I know what you mean.
I get it. Like, I get, like they've won 5 in 15 years or whatever. That's pretty amazing. But yes,
I've gotten into arguments with people that say, oh, they're not a dynasty because they never had back to back. And I was like, you are.
Yeah, I think that's
like, out of your mind. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think that's overly semantical.
Like, you're just unbelievable.
Like, I would say I would say what they have done is more impressive than the Lakers winning 3 in a row.
Exactly. It's longevity. I mean, and doing it with completely, I mean, like, and everybody, of course they have. But really, I mean, people sort of say, oh, they've always had the same, few guys. Well, yeah, I mean, they've had Tim Duncan, but the beginning, the David Robinson years or whatever. And then that last David Robinson year, I mean, the Parker and Ginobili weren't what they were. I mean, that was not the same team. I mean, they really are not the same teams. I mean, there's the same, 2 or 3 guys or whatever.
And they play completely differently.
Exactly right.
And the game has completely changed. And yet they've managed to, Well,
because that's how I can out these people is they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because they're like, oh, they're boring. And I'm like, they're not. I mean, okay, yes, that 2003 title team, I agree. They were boring. This team is not. Like, they play fast as hell. Like, And the best thing ever, I don't know if you've how much you look at kind of the tracking, the motion tracking stuff, is watch what Tim Duncan and how he conserves his energy these days, where he basically doesn't go up like past half court.
Yeah, it's like Kareem.
If he can't, like like Bill Russell, he's just like, yep, there you go, there's the ball. Just do what you guys are gonna do. I'll be over here. Okay, good, you scored. All right,
yeah.
I'm here. Like if I need to come back, I will, but otherwise, I don't really care to. You guys can kind of just do what you want to do over there. I'll just be over here. So I love it.
Indeed. Good list.
That's all I got. Yeah, that's all I got. So yeah, as mentioned, please, if anybody has, I would love to hear your other ones as well. So, and there was a bunch, Jason Terry with that Mavericks team I looked at was a pretty interesting one as well. But yeah, really good. Jason Kidd, that year when he became a really good, 3-point shooter for the title Mavericks team. But yeah, I'd love to hear if you have any ones in your mind that you thought of. Definitely let us know, and maybe we'll make a blog post or something about it. So
yeah. I would that would be cool. We would appreciate that. Of course, everyone can check us out at twitter.com/overandbackNBA, also facebook.com overandbackNBA, and we have a website at overandbackNBA.com that we promised to update someday. And but we
pinky swear.
Yes. Of course, our podcasts are at thepodiumgame.com. You can also check us out at the Hardwood Paroxysm Basketball Network of podcasts on iTunes. We would appreciate a rating and review, not just for us, but for all the great podcasts on the network, of which there are many and varied and are quite awesome. And did I forget anything, Rich?
I think that's it. I think you got it.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Rich, it's been a pleasure, and we'll be back soon.